One-stop shop for custom ARs, Cerakoting, laser engraving, gunsmithing, suppressors, ammo, and reloading supplies. DG Firearms, 115 Business Highway 61 North in Bowling Green, and online at dgfirearmsllc.com.
Is your retirement income at risk if you or your spouse needs nursing home or in-home care? Hi, I'm Eric Robert, Director of Investments with the ClearPath Wealth Management Group at Stifel and host of On the Money, Saturday mornings at 9 on News Talk STL 1019. The cost of long-term care is one of the biggest risks in retirement planning. For many retirees, a single nursing home stay can cause a significant reduction in assets that can permanently reduce your retirement income. Fortunately, there are affordable and flexible options available today that can help you manage the cost of long-term care. Our team can help you address the risks relevant to your retirement, including long-term care. To schedule your free retirement plan consultation, go to clearpathinvesting.com. That's clearpathinvesting.com, or call us at 636-695-2650. That's clearpathinvesting.com or 636-695-2650. Stifel Nicholas and Company Incorporated, member SIPC and NYSE.
1 in 4 women will have an abortion before the age of 45 in this country. That's the tragedy we must work to stop. Mike Ferguson from The Morning Show here, and that is why Reach Reproductive Health is here, to empower parents to save the lives of innocent children and to see these families come to Christ. And you can be a part of saving and changing lives. So pray and visit outreachforlife.org to learn more, volunteer, and donate. That's outreachforlife.org.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Through the evening and overnight, cloudy skies and warm. There is a chance for a shower or storm, but it's a low chance in St. Louis, better chance south of St. Louis. Overnight low of 65. That chance for a shower or storm continues on Wednesday, about a 30% chance, otherwise mostly cloudy, and a high of 83. The warm trend continues right into Thursday, despite the cloud cover, mostly cloudy and a high of 85 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of Colombo and Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
The time to rise has been engaged. Your better best to rearrange. I'm talking here to me alone. I listen to the finest work song. Your finest hour.
Hello and welcome to Tuesday afternoon here on Colombo and Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. It's a Tuesday that feels like a Monday. You've probably figured it out by this point, but I bet you were a little confused this morning. Bet it happened. But I hope that means you had a great weekend, a great holiday weekend. Got a chance to unplug a little bit, get away from the craziness of this world. Spend some time with the family, friends, or just, some alone time. Nothing wrong with that either. That's why we're here, to get you all caught back up on everything that is happening as we kick off the week and everything that happened over the weekend when it comes to news. We've got a lot of great company over today on Colombo and Company. I am Tony Colombo here in studio with producer Ashlyn, and we are going to get to everything as we go through the next couple of hours here. It is Tuesday, which means we're going to talk to Susie Moore from Red State, and of course the co-host of Mike Ferguson in the Morning every morning here on News Talk STL. Perfect day to talk to Susie, as she is our legal expert on the show. And today there's a really interesting Supreme Court story, a decision issued by the court today that is making a lot of headlines and has a couple of the Supreme Court justices going public with their dissent to this ruling. Leading that charge is Justice Clarence Thomas. He is blasting the court for its decision on a Florida lawsuit over illegal immigrant truck drivers. So this is an issue, obviously, that's been in the news over the last few years, and this could have been an opportunity for that issue to be hashed out in court. But that is not going to happen, and Justice Clarence Thomas is very upset about this ruling. He was also joined by Justice Alito in his dissent to this case. I'm going to get into the details and unpack all of that with Susie in the 3 o'clock hour. I might talk a little bit about it beforehand, too, just to kind of prepare for that conversation, because there's a lot of details here, and it's really, really interesting because basically there's nowhere else now to go because it is a state versus state issue. So it needs to be handled at the federal level. You know, it can't be held at the state level. And by deciding to basically not hear this case, it essentially kills it. You know, normally we've had these conversations with Susie a lot about when the Supreme Court passes on a particular case getting bumped up to that level, you know, before going through the process of lower courts or sending sometimes cases back to lower courts. It's my understanding, and again, we'll get all the clarity from Susie in about an hour, but that there isn't that option here, that the Supreme Court is where this type of case should be argued. And since they're not going to, then it's just not going to continue, which has a lot of people upset. So looking forward to digging into that issue as we go through the afternoon, and especially at 3 o'clock when we talk to Susie Moore. Also, we've got more primary drama happening, as last week we talked a lot about Donald Trump's endorsement of Ed Geleen, who was running against Congressman Thomas Massey in the Republican primary in Kentucky last week. And Massey lost that race to the Trump-endorsed Geleen, which, you know, divided some Republicans. And a very similar story unfolding now. And we've talked about what's happening in Texas over the last couple weeks, but now the spotlight is kind of shifted to that primary election where a very similar situation is happening. Donald Trump has endorsed a Republican candidate that is running against the incumbent Republican that already holds the seat. And these are really big names. Not that Thomas Massey isn't well known as well, but this, of course, is the race in Texas for John Cornyn's Senate seat, where the president has endorsed the Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton. And this week, as we kick off this week, there are some Republicans going public with their disappointment, in their words, disagreement with the president endorsing a different Republican candidate than the one that already holds the seat. And this is one of the things that I want to unpack as we talk about this through the afternoon, because there is a idea that's being planted by many reports, as you read them across multiple media outlets, that Ken Paxton would be in danger of losing that Senate seat in the general election to a Democrat more than John Cornyn would. So they're trying to make the argument that if Trump gets his way with the primary, that it could, in the long run, jeopardize the Republicans' ability to hold the United States Senate, because Paxton would be a weaker candidate. I'm not sure I believe that. I'm not sure that the state of Texas is ready to elect a Democrat to the Senate. I think it's been something like 30 years since that has happened, maybe even longer. I'd have to look. I know it's been a very long time. I we talked about that when Jasmine Crockett made her announcement about running for Senate in Texas, and looked at the time when we were having that conversation, looked back to see how long it had been since a Democrat won a United States Senate race in Texas, and it's been a very, very long time. So I don't know. I'm not sure that I believe the media narrative or the narrative that is being put forth by some Republicans that Ken Paxton could possibly lose that seat to the Democrats, but doesn't make the whole debate and division that is happening surrounding this any less impactful or less real. So we're going to unpack that as we go through the afternoon. Donald Trump also making the announcement that he is convening a cabinet meeting at Camp David tomorrow in regards to what is happening with Iran. There was a lot of speculation, drama, eyes on the Capitol over this holiday weekend to see if the president may take military action in Iran. As we talked about it at the very end of last week when Ken Williams was in here on Friday, and I still feel this way. We were talking about how it feels like we are near the end of the line for this phase. That this has been going on for some time now, where we talk about a military, we talk about military action being taken because negotiations have stalled or are failing or whatever it may be. And, these dates, these kind of moments have come and gone where it felt like, if they don't have an agreement by this date, and we've kind of done that a few times. But this one just feels different. This one I don't feel like is going to be like that. That it's going to kind of get to a breaking point, but then just, okay, we're still talking. I feel like we're either going to make a deal or we're going to see the next level of military engagement. That's just my personal vibe on where we are at with this. But the fact that the president is convening this meeting at Camp David tomorrow to discuss the situation kind of lends credence to that theory that we're getting close to either putting down the hammer and saying, this is the deal, time to sign it, and if you don't, we're gonna handle this a different way. And I just feel like we're getting very, very close to that. So we're gonna keep a close eye on what happens in the next 24 hours with the president, and obviously this meeting tomorrow. And we'll preview that as we go through the afternoon today and kind of get out our expectations of what we think could happen over the next couple days. We're going to be joined. It is a Tuesday, but since yesterday was the holiday, we always talk to Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments to kick off the week on Monday afternoons. He kind of gets the week started with a check on the economy and the markets. And since we're starting the week on a Tuesday this week, Paul Curtman is going to do that with us. He will be with us here in just about 3 or 4 minutes from now. So going to talk to Paul Curtman this afternoon. Also, Justin Sparks, former Missouri State Representative, law enforcement expert. Again, one of our regular Monday guests, shifting with the calendar and joining us on this Tuesday afternoon. Justin will be with us in the 3 o'clock hour, as will Stel Babe, producer Stel Pontikes, our intrepid Cub reporter in the field, covering everything happening in this busy world. You never know where he's going to be. You never know what he's going to be on top of, but you can guarantee that you're going to get a lot of good information when you hear from Stel Pontikes. Stel Babe will be with us in the 3 o'clock hour as well. All right, let's get Paul on the line and continue the conversation. Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments joins us next.
Make me me feel there are songs to be sung, bells
Made
to
in
be
St.
rung,
Louis for
and a
St. Louis.
wonderful fling
It's
to be
News Talk STL.
sung. And even when I'm old and gray, I'm gonna feel the way I
If you have a phone, you have a radio. Download the all-new News Talk STL app
Love the all-new Newstalk STL app.
and listen anytime, anywhere.
All this month, Renewal by Anderson is honoring those who've served and reflecting on the meaning of home. Home is where you live feeling comfortable, protected. And at Renewal by Anderson, we believe your home should deliver that every single day. With our exclusive Fibrex material, stronger than vinyl, you get durability that lasts for years to come. Right now, during our Memorial Day savings event, save $500 on every window, $1,000 on every door, and military families, you get an additional $300 off your entire purchase. And we have flexible financing. Call by May 31st to schedule your free window and door diagnosis. Call 877-WINDOWS or visit renewalbyanderson.com. 877-WINDOWS, Renewal by Anderson. Renewal by Anderson. Superior products, exceptional service.
Gutter Pros is the team to call if you have any issues, obviously, with your gutters at your home or business. But it's so much more than that when it comes to the team at Gutter Pros. It's also all your siding needs. So siding repair, siding replacement at your home or business. Also, fascia and soffit issues. They do it all at Gutter Pros. And, of course, this has been, it is storm season here in the St. Louis area. And we've had a couple of pretty intense ones here recently. And I'm sure we're not quite out of the woods yet. So if one of these storms has either created, revealed an issue, or you just something seems like there could be a problem, one of the great offers, one of the great services from Gutter Pros is their free estimates. So if something, looks like it could be damaged or, a crack or small holes in your siding that you're afraid, are allowing moisture or water to get back behind there where it's not supposed to be and could be causing damage, that could become very costly down the road if not touched, or the gutters don't seem to be draining properly, or maybe are starting to separate from your house. All of these, things to look for, these clues that there could be a problem. We've learned a lot of that in our conversations with Dave Sylvester from Gutter Pros over the years. Always great tips and great info whenever we get a chance to talk to Dave. But, this time of year, take advantage of that free estimates offer because it's just for the peace of mind. If there's nothing wrong, great. You don't have to worry about it anymore. If there is, now you know what the details are of that situation and what your options are to move forward with it. And then you can make the best decision for your home, for your business, for your budget on how you want to address that situation moving forward. So again, whether it be gutter installation, gutter repair, leaf protection, siding installation, siding repair, fascia, soffit, they do it all at Gutter Pros. Learn more and contact them now by going to the website gutterpros.com.
Democracy is loud, and on Tuesday, June 2nd, you can be right in the middle of it. News Talk STL is bringing the St. Charles County Executive Primary Debate to Lindenwood University in St. Charles at the J. Scheidegger Center for the Arts. No reservations, no tickets, just show up. Can't make it in person? Catch every word live on News Talk STL from 7 to 8:30 p.m. The St. Charles County Executive Primary Debate on June 2nd. Brought to you by the St. Charles County Republican Central Committee, Mid-Rivers News Magazine, Lewis & Clark's Pachyderms Club, and the Hammond Institute for Free Enterprise at Lindenwood University.
Jamie Allman here, tossing and turning over retirement worries. You're not alone. 3 out of 4 Americans share your concern about having enough saved. But here's the thing. A comfortable retirement isn't out of reach, even if you're planning for 30 or 40 years ahead. Every day, Jeff Portman from the Gemini Wealth Group helps people avoid the critical mistakes that can derail their retirement. Build your path to financial confidence. Visit GeminiWealthGroup.com or call Jeff directly at 314-888-0123.
Securities and advisory services offered through LPL Financial, a registered investment advisor. Member FINRA, SIPC.
On the next,
Larry Connors, USA.
The story behind the story, something personal. My early life selling spud nuts. Know what that is?
Larry Connors USA.
Now, weeknights 6 until 8.
On News Talk STL.
Somewhere beyond the sea, somewhere waiting for me, my lover stands on golden sands and watches the ships that go sailing somewhere.
Hello, welcome back to Colombo and Company on 1019 94.1 News Talk STL. I'm going to talk to Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments here in just a few moments. It is a Tuesday afternoon, but we are starting the week after the holiday weekend, and we always kick off the week with a conversation with Paul as he gets us that beginning of the week market check, economy check, especially right now with everything happening with Iran and everything else in this world. It is important to keep an eye, obviously, on all of those things. So we will get Paul on the line here in just a moment. I mentioned some of the other stories that we're keeping an eye on there in that first segment. One other one that we're going to talk about here. NASA has expanded its details about their moon base. NASA has vowed today in a press briefing to take the world along to the moon via a new website. In just the last hour, really just over the last few moments before we started the show at 2 o'clock, a moon-based website has launched that will become the central hub for all communications and updates around the mission. NASA announced, quote, just like in decades past, the idea is to take the world along with us as astronauts return to the moon. So that's going to be a lot of fun to talk about, especially with our good friend Gabe Pfeiffer, who is a literal rocket scientist and our go-to guy for everything out there in outer space and up with the stars. So one of the other major announcements today that we will get into as we go through the afternoon. But right now, we got Paul on the line, Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments. Again, really appreciate you, Paul, kind of shuffling with the schedule this weird week. We always start the week with you, but the week started with a holiday. So appreciate your time on a Tuesday afternoon, my friend. How are you?
Hey, I'm doing good, Tony. But it was a good holiday to have. Memorial Day is it is, strange as it sounds, it's one of my favorite holidays, not because of the 3-day weekend, but because I think, it's in the name. It's Memorial Day. And so it's a time to be reflective and to hopefully get rid of some distractions and kind of focus back on the main thing in America, and that is why we have America and all those people that sacrifice for it. So, hey, I'm totally fine coming on here on a Tuesday to spend a little time with you, Tony.
Well, amen to that sentiment. And, we talked about that on Friday going into the weekend, that, go, have fun, barbecue, travel, go to the lake, go fishing, unplug, spend time with your friends and family. But just remember that while that is happening, the reason that you get to do all of those things in this great country is because of the people that paid the ultimate price for freedom and liberty. And also, Paul, I know Memorial Day is about those who lost their lives, but I think it's okay for people like me who never served to also take the opportunity to say thank you to people like you who did serve. And luckily, we're able to come home alive and well from it. So thank you for your service as well as we remember this Memorial Day.
Sure.
And
thank you, Tony.
Yeah.
Go ahead. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, please go ahead.
I was just gonna say I would be derelict in my duty and loyalty as a Marine not to mention that I did lose some friends, Corporal Joseph Tremblay, Second Lieutenant James Cathy, and then others that came home and carried wounds with them back home and ultimately lost their lives back here stateside. So Just want to give a shout out to those two men and their families.
Yeah, that's awesome. And not to be Pollyannish or, overly, sappy on, right after the holiday like this, but maybe a little bit, when we're having these ridiculous debates and conversation and all the division that we see in this country, maybe just, both sides of the aisle, just remember those people that gave it all and think to yourself, what would they think about, the fact that the number one issue in the country right now is, do we allow boys and girls bathrooms? Let's bring some, you know what I mean? Let's remember, they paid the price for this great country. Let's honor them with a little bit of common sense and a little bit of decency, and let's maybe come together, a little bit more than we do.
Yeah, not really what a lot of us had on our minds when we were signing our names on the dotted line.
Yeah, no, exactly. So, yes, great reminder to, it was Memorial Day yesterday, but just because the holiday is past, keep that, keep those folks in your memories and remember the price that they paid for us to have everything that we do over here. So, Paul, just like we do on every week on Mondays, let's just start with where we're at with the economy and specifically with the markets as we kick off of this short, abbreviated holiday, post-holiday week.
Hey, listen, the markets are doing pretty well. I mean, we have had, if you were to watch the S&P 500, the market is what you would call gapping up both Friday and today, which means it opened quite a bit higher than the previous day's close. That's where it opened, was already way high. Now, right now, the market is trading in a window that is an all-time high. It's kind of been going down throughout the day, but we're still over 0.5% higher than closing bell on Friday. And this is interesting, though, because I just looked at a headline on Fox News that President Trump's having the cabinet meet at Camp David because according to the headline, the peace talk is beginning to fray. So I don't know exactly how that's going to bode well for the market. The market wants to see this war come to an end, even though we're at an all-time high. If it turns out that we have to send ground troops in, or if it turns out that we lose somebody who has seemed to be coming alongside of us as an ally, if any of that begins to happen, if for some reason the straits get shut down, even further locked down tighter than they even are right now, then we could see the markets begin to recoil from that. But right now, the market seems to be rather optimistic. So hopefully that just continues to kind of hold the line for us and we still see optimism begin to pour in. Maybe with whatever happens in Camp David, whatever announcements are made on the other side of this meeting, maybe that also will continue to foster some confidence in the future for investors.
I did that. Sorry, I took a drink and muted my microphone and forgot to turn it back on. Welcome to your first day in radio. So that is very interesting, Paul, because we have talked a lot over the last several months and really the last couple of years, even before the Iran, conflict ramped up, when it was government shutdowns or other major issues that you would maybe, history would point to being problems or create issues with the market. The market has continued to just kind of do its own thing. There's part of me that thinks like the worst thing that could happen is that we just keep kicking the can down the road and keep saying, negotiation. I know it felt like we were getting close to either a deal or a military action, but no, we're making progress and negotiations continue. We've done that already a couple of times where we felt like there was a deadline and something was about to give and then it didn't. I feel like that would be the worst scenario for the markets and the confidence and stability of what's going on. What about the military action over? I mean, obviously the chaos that comes along with war, but I mean, there's a lot of other moving parts in this that haven't really had a huge impact. What is it about the idea of a major military action that would change the course more than the decisions that we've seen to this point?
I believe it's probably just the idea of a prolonged, deeper entrenched military conflict right there in the Middle East. Not just any part of the Middle East, the part of the Middle East that has everything to do with the free flow and transportation of oil. So I think if it turns into a much longer conflict, I think that the market could recoil from that. Now, the market did begin to recoil as soon as we launched the war. We saw the S&P 500 drop by as much as 12%. But as soon as President Trump announced that peace talk, that we're going to bring everybody together, we're going to have a peace talk, the market immediately turned around and just went on a tear, like very, very bullish. But it's also important to understand that there's domestic issues that help fuel that confidence. We have had some revisions on some economic numbers. We've had good GDP results or reports. We've also had more than double the amount of jobs that economists expected to be created in the first quarter of 2026. We had more than twice what they had expected. And so there's also a lot of domestic information that's helping drive the markets up, but there's other information. This is why people just need to make sure they have a good strategy, because you have so many variables that are competing against each other to push the market up or down. So you have those good domestic numbers, but on the flip side of that, the Federal Reserve just came out with some announcements, and it doesn't look like we're going to have another interest rate cut. In fact, we might have an interest rate hike before the end of the year. Bond yields are beginning to move back up a little bit. That's going to make borrowing get harder. So you have really good jobs reports, but then you also have the Federal Reserve saying, hey, let's maybe raise interest rates. Well, if that happens, the market might shudder from that. So there's any number of things that could push the market, continue to push it higher, or even make it pull back. There's a lot of researchers out there right now, a lot of analysts who believe that the market is definitely overbought and it does need a correction. We had a little bit of one that was driven by that headline of the war back in March, but there are some researchers and analysts out there that are saying, no, we need something a little bit stronger. The market needs to rebalance itself. So people should just be prepared for like whatever's about to happen, and make sure that you have a professional that is working for you, that can answer your question, that understands what your goals and objectives are for your funds. So that way you have a portfolio that's built to last through that type of volatility whenever and however it comes.
And I know the perfect team and professional that you can get for that help, and it's the voice you're hearing right now, Paul Curtman. Paul Curtman, PR Curtman Investments, him and his team. Check them out if you are looking for help along that path. Okay, I want to get back to Iran, but okay. you mentioned you hit on a couple really important and interesting things there. I know pretty much exclusively because of these conversations with you that we have seen better than predicted job growth during this Trump administration, and specifically over the last several months and this year. I feel like that would be a bigger deal if Joe Biden was still in office, that more people would realize that or know about that this is not something that we are hearing much about. Do you feel that same way, that this positive news, like all of these jobs, has been suppressed? Maybe it's just because there's so much going on. Maybe there's not an agenda there, but I feel like this would be a much bigger headline and something that people were talking about a lot more, under a different administration. What do you think?
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, because I hadn't put a whole lot of thought into that, but the thought had crossed my mind over the last couple of weeks that, I haven't really been hearing all the good reports from behind government podiums that I probably would have heard about. I mean, listen, when the Bureau of Labor Statistics releases an economic report that says we've had more than twice what they were hoping, we beat expectations by over 100%. Like, that is a big deal. I think any other politician would be capitalizing on that, especially in a year going into the midterms. But I really haven't heard the administration really touting that as their major achievement. I think that might lend some credence to the idea that President Trump is just really committed to this mission at hand, which is Iran, which is another reason why it's just an opinion. It's just a feeling that I have right now. people feel very confident that he's at the helm and not somebody like Biden during a Middle East conflict like this.
That's interesting because, one person can only do so many things. But you would think that, especially now that we're getting so close, I mean, especially in, political, on the political timeline, we are, midterm elections are right around the corner at this point, that you would be, while focused on Iran and, the other issues at hand, you would be focused on making sure the people, the voters, know the successes that you've delivered to them in order to hold the majority in D.C. so you can continue to work on the issues that are distracting you from those things like Iran. I guess it's a little bit of a double-edged sword, but you think that this has been more of a maybe not a good job by Republicans communicating that message, combined with, obviously always the media suppression that's going to come with anything that's positive attached to the right.
And on top of that, you were talking about this before I joined you, aliens.
Yeah.
I mean, since when has the news cycle had to compete? Since when has any headline ever in the history of the world had to compete with disclosure about UFOs and alien life? And we're getting this officially now from the United States government. So we have seemingly good economic reports coming out. We're engaged in a war, and in the middle of all this, for the first time, you can go to, White House /UFO or Department of War /UFO. Who in the world ever thought that they would be announcing these types of URLs so we can go and see a whole bunch of declassified aerial phenomenon?
Yeah, UAP, not UFOs anymore.
Yeah, UAPs. They're UAPs.
Yeah, it's not UFOs
so you don't
anymore.
sound crazy, right?
Exactly. Yeah, no, you're so right. I just talked about the moon base. That's another brand new website that they put out that you can monitor them as as NASA moves forward with building this gigantic and literally after reading some of the details that were announced by NASA today, humongous moon base that they are planning on starting construction on. And to your point, I didn't even get to this. Late last week, this came out, and it's still in my stack of notes because I do want to talk about it at some point. But part of those files that were released last week included audio from a 1969 Apollo 12 post-mission medical debrief where astronauts were describing seeing streaks of light out the window of the spaceship and it was keeping them awake while they were trying to sleep in deep space. And these streaks of light, according to them, were not natural phenomena. There was something
it's keeping me
going
awake.
on.
It's keeping me awake right now, Tony.
I know, right?
It's keeping me awake. What is this stuff?
It was in 1969, Paul. I mean, that's how long this has been going on, and we've been, it's been hidden from us. Go ahead.
I'm just listen. I've got ideas out there about this. I've got thoughts about it, and of course, as an investment advisor, I'm also looking at how is this going to affect the markets and industry, and of course, that's part of my train of thought right now too. But I'm telling you, I am fascinated by this moon base talk, and I don't know how is it that they're doing all this disclosure in alignment, concurrently with talking about moving forward with a moon base. I would be thinking that NASA, they have to know a whole lot more than they're letting on, because any other sane person would say, let's hit the brakes on this moon base thing until we figure out what it is that's flying around in the sky. That's what any reasonable person would be thinking. But they're like, no, we're going to the moon. We're going to set up a moon base. And it makes me wonder, what else is in these files that they're going to release, or maybe they're deciding they're not going to release.
Oh, Paul, now that I know that you're so into this, we're going to have to definitely have that conversation deeper on the air. You're playing with fire, mentioning that you're into that stuff, because we could go on for hours about that. But we need to get back to the conversation at hand. No promises that I'm not going to ask you about aliens, though, before we wrap this up. But I do want to talk about, you mentioned the meeting, and I talked about this at the top of the show, President announcing that he's convening a cabinet meeting at Camp David tomorrow, which is a sign, I think, if nothing else, that something is happening at a bigger level than we have seen to this point. It doesn't necessarily mean for sure that we're going to see military action, but I think that it definitely is a signal that, we're getting close to some type of action. So I want to talk a little bit more about that, what we could maybe expect from that, and also, what could be the economic implications and impact of whatever happens after this meeting tomorrow at Camp David. Going to continue the conversation with Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments next on Colombo and Company.
And watches the ships that go sail.
For podcast articles and more, find us on newstalkstl.com.
Beyond the sea, she's there watching for me. If I could fly like birds.
Free speech is alive and well in America.
Thanks for taking my call.
Right here.
You know what's going on?
Have a great awakening.
You see through the smoke screen.
It's cool to be woke.
News Talk STL.
Until it's not.
News, analysis, opinion.
When insurance companies know you're represented by Under Law, they know Under is not going to let you be pushed around. Their reputation is built on years of courtroom battles. If you suffer an injury or damage to your property, serve the insurance company notice you have Under Law on your side. A St. Louis firm you can trust to protect you at every term. Don't settle for less. You want to win? Believe me, Under wins. Under, O-N-D-R, underlaw.com.
Connor Roofing. You can count on Connor. Connor Roofing is now a 2-time winner of the National Best of the Best Award for customer satisfaction for roofing, storm damage restoration, siding, gutters, both residential and commercial. Please visit ConnorRoofing.com for an estimate. And remember, you can count on Connor.
Hi, it's Ken Williams, and my favorite capriati sandwich is the Cap Pastrami. You've got hot pastrami, melty Swiss cheese, crunchy coleslaw, and zesty Russian dressing. What else do you need? I love capriatis, and you will too. On Manchester at McKnight and Rock Hill, and now in Creve Coeur on Olive, just 1 mile west of 270.
This hour of Colombo and Company brought to you by Gutter Pros. Water goes where we tell it. Call 314-656-7195 or visit them at gutterpros.com.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Little bonus time on a bonus day with Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments. Paul, I want you to keep your, your financial expert hat on, but also halfway put on your military expertise hat. I know you have all these hats laying around. Because I think both of them will tie into this conversation. We were just mentioning the fact that the president has convened a cabinet meeting at Camp David tomorrow as negotiations with Iran enter a critical phase. I mentioned at the beginning of the show, and Ken Williams and I talked about this on Friday afternoon going into the weekend. I still very much feel this way. Whatever it happens over the next several days or week or whatever it is, I feel like we're getting ready to move into some next phase. That the times of, we were about to do something, but then negotiations, picked up a little bit, so we're going to take some more time and try to, give everybody time to figure this out. I feel like we're past that or very close to being past that now. And it's either going to be, let's move forward with a ceasefire and some type of, agreement on the strait and move forward peacefully, or it's going to be time for a military action. And I think it's going to be one of those two things soon. Do you feel like does this feel different to you as well? Do you feel like we're getting close to that line, whichever direction it goes? Something's got to give soon?
I do. I don't think President Trump has the patience that previous presidents have had with Middle East conflicts. I think that he's trying to be smart and careful about it, and I think that he's just also at the same time trying to be very decisive about it. One thing that President Trump has demonstrated to the American people is that when he decides he wants something, he will go after it and just not let it go until he gets it. he had made the announcement that this was going to be 4 or 5 weeks. That's what it's going to take. Well, it's been a little bit longer than 4 or 5 weeks. I don't believe that President Trump wants to show the American people that we're going to go into the midterms elections with an ongoing conflict in Iran. I think that he understands that that's going to be very, very bad for the Republicans in the midterm elections. If I was a Democrat, that's what I would be hammering home. Like, here we're sending you to the polls because there's another war in the Middle East while you're voting. There's another war in the Middle East. I think President Trump is going to want to make sure that this gets wrapped up. He has said that the straits are going to be open and secure one way or another. So if he's bringing the whole cabinet together to Camp David, I think on the other side of this meeting, I think we're gonna see them come out of there with a very decisive plan. I don't think it's going to be a continuation of just kicking the can down the road, giving Iran time to just pause, sit in a corner, think about it, and then just come back and, as the headline says, just let the talks continue to fray out.
Yeah, I agree. And I am also, my gut feeling is more and more that we're going to see military action, because despite the fact that we also get stories almost every day that Iran wants to make a deal. They're dying to make an agreement, and we're getting closer. At the same time, what's coming out of their mouths is very different. Iran's supreme leader, Ayatollah Machatba Khomeini, the son, just today put out a statement that included the words, "The United States will no longer have a safe haven in the Middle East." You know, very, very combative language. And we've seen that, you know, a lot from various parts of leadership in Iran. And that's another thing. Like, which one's the real leaders? Did they even know? Do we know? Do they even know? I just feel like that if you pay real close attention to what's going on in the words that are being said publicly, especially from Iran's side, that we are much closer to military action, and we are not that close to a peaceful agreement. Dude, what's your gut feeling tell you on where we're at?
I agree with that, and I hope it doesn't come to that. I've said it before. I'll say it again. I think that one mistake President Trump made was at the very beginning when the bombs first started to land. He said we want them to come to the table to talk about terms of surrender or peace, peace talks. And he said we're going to keep dropping bombs, but then that changed. And he said, we're going to have a ceasefire. I think that was a huge mistake. And I hate to say it, like, I don't want to see bombs drop, but sometimes, like, one of the realities of war, there's two ways to win a war. I learned this when I was in the Marines. There's two ways to win a war. One is fire superiority. You put more bullets downrange than the people downrange. You fire bigger, stronger, and more guns at them than they can fire at you. So fire superiority. The other way is you just have to break your enemy's will to fight. And what we're doing when we're giving people time just to sit around, recoup, take a breather, reload, we're not doing either of those. And so I think that President Trump, if he would have said, hey, if you want to talk, we can talk, but we're not going to talk. We're going to turn this off and talk. We're going to keep this on full power and talk. We might have gotten to an agreement, a full conclusion of this matter much, much sooner. I think that when you have people in this particular case, not in all cases, but maybe in this particular case, saying, hey, let's let up on these people. I mean, they've been saying that Iran has been after us for 40 years, funding suicide bombers, sending them throughout the Middle East, sending them across unsecured borders in America. These are not the kind of people you let take a breather. Like, you just continue to wage the war until you have unconditional surrender. We had a famous World War II general who said there's no substitute for victory. Well, when you give people this kind of time after making this kind of case, I just think it's kind of inconsistent. So I'm afraid that if we just let them have more time for peace talks, more time to reload, more time to regroup, more time to organize an insurgency, then we're going to wind up in a place where we wind up putting troops on the ground. And I do not want that because that's how we wind up staying in a place for, if you want to use Iraq as an example, for 20 years.
Yeah. And to your point, that is exactly what is the message basically that's coming from the Ayatollah and from the leadership there. I mentioned that statement. It read in, to give you more context on that, more of that statement that was put out today by the new Ayatollah. Quote, "What is certain in this regard is that the hands of time will not turn back, and the nations and lands of this region will no longer serve as shields for U.S. bases. The United States not only will no longer have a safe haven for its mischief and for establishing military bases in the region, but day by day, it is growing more distant from its former status." That doesn't sound like somebody who's ready to negotiate a peace deal to me, Paul. And we're almost out of time, but I want to ask you about this because this has been in a lot of the most recent reports, and it's actually something you mentioned in that last segment. If we do move forward with some kind of massive military action or a bigger campaign than we've seen even to this point, are you expecting there to be boots on the ground? Because that would be a line and a new level that we haven't seen in this yet. And I'm not, that's one of those things that will be interesting to see how voters, what the patience of the United States, voters and citizens are if we move it up to that level. Do you expect that to be part of a military action if we indeed go that route?
I do. I would expect that. I don't believe that you can continue to kick the can down the road and allow your enemy the opportunity to regroup, reorganize, take a breath, find new weapons, re-strategize. I don't think you can continue to do that and lead them into a position of unconditional surrender. I don't think that we should be doing, because listen, right now, that Ayatollah, this is a job promotion for him. What this should have been something that was so fast and so, and I hate to say this, it sounds so bad, but this is just the nature of war. Should have been so fast and so violent that everybody should be like, I don't want the job.
Yeah, right.
I don't want the job. Not 1, 2, 3, not it. Nobody should want the position, but instead they have reorganized their government. Now, we don't know exactly who to trust and who's who, but we know that they're making statements. I mean, we are talking with some people in Iran. So I think that if it continues to go, we will have boots on the ground. And I think that would be terrible politically, but it would also just be bad for us to once again be mired in another conflict with boots on the ground in the Middle East.
Well, he unfortunately has been taught by history that if he just keeps talking and giving a little bit here and there, he can probably get away with it, and eventually the United States will lose interest, and that's probably the plan there, and hopefully, and I don't think it will fly with this president. But only about a minute left here, Paul. Why? You have a minute to explain this, which is ridiculous, but just basics. Like, why can't we do this from the air like we have to this point? Why boots on the ground? Why would that be necessary?
Yeah, I think we can. I think we can continue to do that. We could kind of relaunch and restart and recenter our mission. So I think we could. My fear and my problem, though, is the more bureaucracy gets involved. And so far, President Trump and Pete Hegseth have done a pretty good job of kind of keeping that at bay. But the longer we're there, the more bureaucracy we're going to have, because the more pressure we're going to see from the international climate, but also from where oil's concerned, the international global trade climate. So we want to relieve that pressure. We want to make sure that we maintain control. I think it would be a good thing if we could just stay right back and just recenter our original mission and avoid as much as is humanly possible boots on the ground.
Great stuff. Great info. Great insight. Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments. Really appreciate your time each and every week, and especially rolling with the punches on this holiday week. Thanks for your time as always, my friend.
You got it. Thanks, Tony.
Yeah, great stuff there. And of course, again, if you are looking for assistance on your financial journey, there is no better team than Paul and his team at PR Curtman Investments. All right, we are going to continue the conversation with Susie Moore, our legal expert from Red State and the co-host of Mike Ferguson in the Morning. I mentioned very news-making decision by the Supreme Court today regarding truck drivers. We'll talk about it next.
Tired of settling for generic fishing gear?
Say hello to Bullseye Bait and Tackle, O'Fallon's one-stop shop for serious anglers. Live bait, premium tackle, rods, reels, and an unbeatable selection of lures from top brands like Megabass, Zoom, and Berkley. Whether you're after bass, catfish, crappie, or bluegill, they've got the gear to help you land the big one. Plus, their expert team, led by Mark and Liz, provides rod and reel repair services. Bullseye Bait and Tackle, 266 Fort Zumwalt Square, or at bullseyebaitandtackle.net.
This is Mark Harder with RE/MAX Results, the #1 RE/MAX franchise in the region. As a licensed real estate broker with RE/MAX Results for over 20 years, I've seen the ups and downs of many real estate markets, including the one we're in right now. With the spring market in full swing, now is the time to leap into the buying or selling of your home. Someday is not a day. Today is the day to make your move. Call me at 314-852-8933 or email me at markhardersells@gmail.com.
Hey, it's Vic Porcelli. We're sitting here with our great friend, Chris Cooper. Hi, Chris.
What's going on, Vic? How are you?
I hear you wrote another book. This one's an e-book. Is that right?
The Business Owner's Playbook for Financial Clarity. So it is a great book for entrepreneurs. It's a very short guide. Give people, business owners, the ability to understand key questions that are important, such as succession planning, legacy planning, getting the IRS out of our pockets, right? Because do you like paying taxes?
I do not.
I don't think anybody likes paying taxes, right? That just makes sense. And then always talking about protection. And then the other thing from a business owner perspective, what is the biggest asset a business owner has? Probably their business itself, right? We need to make sure we understand what the value of that business is as well.
So this new book, I'm sure, is incredibly expensive, right? How much?
No, it's a free resource.
Oh, it's free.
We provide guidance, we provide education because we want to make sure people feel educated and understanding because sometimes you don't know what questions to ask, and we need to make sure we help arm people with information to ask the right question.
Reach out to Chris and Stacy today at SerenityWealthNow.com.
Investment advice offered through Fortis Capital Advisors, LLC.
KLGY HD3 Clayton, K270BW Bellefonte, KNBS Bowling Green. This is News Talk STL at 1019, 94.1, and always streaming at newstalkstl.com.
Breaking news at Town Hall. I'm Bob Agnew in Washington. Secretary of State Marco Rubio says the details are still being worked out about that plan to end the war with Iran.
Speaking from India, Rubio says the sides are working on an outline.
Suffice it to say that some progress has been made, significant progress, although not final progress has been made.
Regional officials say the deal would gradually reopen the Strait of Hormuz and see the U.S. blockade of Iranian ports end. Iran would give up its stockpile of highly enriched uranium. At Arlington National Cemetery, President Trump mentioned those who were killed fighting Iran.
We lost 13 wonderful souls, wonderful, special people.
The president said there could be no 4th of July without America's armed forces, and there could be no Independence Day without Memorial Day. Ed Donahue, Washington.
Memorial Day gave veterans a chance to weigh in on the president's actions against Iran. At such an event in Peachtree City, Georgia, U.S. Army veteran and retired military intelligence officer Joe Bowler said he believes that the president is doing the right thing by destroying Iran's nuclear capability.
At the present time, I believe our country is doing the right thing to rid itself and other countries of an evil that presents itself.
Iran, meanwhile, denouncing U.S. strikes in southern Iran as a sign of bad faith. The U.S. military described Monday's strikes as defensive, targeting missile launch sites, and the boats had been placing mines in the Strait of Hormuz. On Wall Street at the closing bell, the Dow down 117, the NASDAQ up 312. The administration preparing for a huge sports event ahead of the president's birthday in June.
Large cranes can be seen on the south lawn of the White House as crews busy constructing the stage and lighting for the UFC fighting ring. The temporary octagon being set up for the UFC Freedom 250 event. It will take place on Sunday night, June 14th, which coincides with Flag Day and President Trump's 80th birthday. Laura Winters reporting.
More on these stories at townhall.com.
You've probably heard all those ads for life insurance. Just a few dollars a day, apply online in minutes, no medical exam. Simple, easy, and cheap, right? Now you're thinking, maybe I should get a quote. Well, smart thinking. Everyone should have life insurance. But here's what they don't tell you. Those few dollars a day rates, they're for young people in perfect health. That's why everyone calls Big Lou the 50 to 60-year-old not-so-perfect candidate. Like you. You take prescription meds and you're overweight. Winner, winner, fried chicken dinner. Well, Big Lou works with life insurance companies that want people like you with no surprises after you apply. In fact, if you're a 50-year-old guy with a few health glitches, Lou could probably find you $1 million of term life coverage for about $200 a month. So yeah, you need life insurance. But unless you're young and healthy, you gotta call Big Lou, because he's like you, older, heavier, and on meds too. Get a quote right now at 800-555-2085, 800-555-2085, or biglou.com.
From the Michaels Flooring Outlet Weather Center.
I'm First Alert 4 Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton. Through the evening and overnight, cloudy skies and warm. There is a chance for a shower or storm, but it's a low chance in St. Louis, better chance south of St. Louis. Overnight low of 65. That chance for a shower or storm continues on Wednesday, about a 30% chance, otherwise mostly cloudy, and a high of 83. The warm trend continues right into Thursday, despite the cloud cover, mostly cloudy and a high of 85 degrees. That's the latest from the First Alert 4 Weather Center. I'm Chief Meteorologist Steve Templeton.
This hour of News Talk STL brought to you by Chris Cooper and Serenity Wealth Management. Business owners, download your free playbook for financial clarity at serenitywealthbiz.com. That's serenitywealthbiz.com.
If you have a phone, you have a radio.
Download the all-new News Talk STL app.
Love the all-new News Talk STL app.
On my way to work in the morning.
Usually I'm in the car.
I listen on the app in my car every morning going to work.
Download the News Talk STL app and listen anytime, anywhere.
You're a rich girl and you're gone too far, 'cause you know it don't matter anyway. You can rely on the old man's money. You can rely on the old man's money. It's a bitch, girl, but it's gone too far.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 News Talk STL. Great conversation in that 2 o'clock hour with Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments. Got a busy 3 o'clock hour here. We're going to talk to Stel Pontikes, the great Stel Babe, our intrepid Cub reporter in the field. He's going to check in a little bit later on this hour. In about 15 minutes or so from now, we're going to talk to former Missouri State Rep, law enforcement expert, Justin Sparks. And right now on the line with us, as it is Tuesday, it may feel like Monday, but it is Tuesday at 3 o'clock, which means it is time to talk to our legal expert from Red State Radio, redstate.com, the co-host of Mike Ferguson in the Morning, number 10 in your program, but number 1 in your hearts. Susie Moore is on the line with us. Susie, hello.
Hello. How are you?
So I'm good, but man, there's a lot to talk about. We were just talking about Iran with Paul, and I really want to get into this Florida Supreme Court decision because I think it is fascinating. But real quick, before that, I know that you had an article up over the weekend about Iran and Trump even floating out the idea of them joining the Abraham Accords. We just had, which is wild, which I think is one of the words you used in your headline, wild. We just heard from the top of the hour news, town hall, Marco Rubio talking about the advancements in peace negotiations, which, as Paul and I were just talking about, at least our gut feeling was it feels more like we're heading towards military action than a peaceful agreement. But hopefully, I hope that my gut feeling is wrong on that. So we've got that going on, and breaking news that's literally happening right now. It's being reported that at this moment, President Donald Trump and Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu are on the phone having a conversation, obviously ahead of the big meeting tomorrow, cabinet meeting tomorrow at Camp David. So there is a whole lot going on when it comes to the moving pieces in Iran. Can you tell us a little bit about that article that you wrote over the weekend, and also just your instincts, your gut feeling on where we're at with this and how close we are to either a peaceful agreement or a military action? How are you feeling about that?
So I'll answer that in reverse order because I really don't know. 1 minute it feels one way and the next minute it feels the next. And I think a big part of that has to do with the fact that you've got a president who very much wants there to be a deal, a good deal, and one that he can, sign his name to and feel like he improved the situation and can claim it as a feather in his cap and a benefit for the United States. But you're dealing with a party on the other side that I don't think they've ever really proven themselves to be worthy of trust when it comes to negotiating deals and agreements and that sort of thing. So it's a very difficult situation to get a handle on. It's lots of moving pieces and parts, and even within Iran itself, of course, there's lots of moving pieces and parts because it's like, who's really calling the shots? Who's really ultimately got the say, and how is this all going to play out? So I don't know is the answer to that. The article, so this is one of those things where it was like Sunday morning, I'm like still half asleep, and
Donald Trump saying crazy stuff on Truth Social. You just start writing.
Truth Social. He's kind of talking about it. So I'm like, oh, we'll cover. You want to kind of get the latest from the president on, whatever discussions there are. And I glanced at it and pulled the post and started writing on it. And then I was reading the whole thing. I was like, whoa, wait a second here, because right at the very end, he teases this little thing about, I'd like to thank thus far all of the countries of the Middle East for their support and cooperation, which will be further enhanced and strengthened by their joining the nations of the historic Abraham Accords. So first off, he's bringing up the Abraham Accords and inviting other Middle Eastern countries to come on, get on board with us,
including Iran.
Well, that's what I was going to say. And then he ends it with, and who knows, perhaps the Islamic Republic of Iran would like to join us as well. And I was like, oh, he did not. He did not.
Did you have
do
to
that.
check and make sure you weren't still sleeping?
Yes, I did. Because I'm like, that almost just flew under the radar. But when he does that sort of thing, it's like, it's kind of the classic Trump troll. I mean, no one in their right mind thinks for a second that Iran would be signing on to the Abraham Accords, even if there are some others that come along and say, yeah, you know what, we think this is good for us. But he throws that out there. Well, of course he does, because that kind of throws everybody off and it kind of changes the lay of the playing field. And so I thought that was just kind of, it really did catch my attention Sunday morning.
Yeah.
So I had to point that out.
Caught my attention when I read your article. So I agree completely. And it does kind of add to that confusion that you just mentioned about, it's almost impossible to try to translate or, read the signals coming out of the United States and Iran, because the signals are so different. One story makes it sound like we're, a moment away from launching a massive military operation, and then the next story is about how close we are to a peace agreement. So it's going to be really interesting. One thing, I've been kind of asking everybody over the last few days, and there seems to be a lot of consensus on this. Do you agree that it feels like whatever happens is going to happen soon, that the idea of being in this phase of what's going to happen, negotiations and kicking the can down the road on whether or not there is a military action, we're coming to the end of the line on that, whether it's an agreement or a military action? It feels like something's about to happen. Is that what your instincts say too?
It does, although I want to put a caveat there, because it has felt like something's about to happen now on and off for, some time, not just right this second. But considering the fact that Trump is convening a cabinet meeting at Camp David tomorrow, that carries with it, some significance, and him being on the phone right now with Benjamin Netanyahu.
Yeah, I feel like we're I agree with you completely, and I've felt this way before, that like we were getting close to something and then it didn't happen. But something about the last few days feels like we've kind of gone to a new level on that.
Well, here's the other thing to keep in mind, Tony. Not that this is show business, and not that it's not like deadly serious, because it is. But this is Donald Trump we're talking about, and we're about to celebrate his 80th birthday and the 250th birthday of the United States. And if you think for one second he wants there to be a question about whether or not we're in charge over in the Middle East when all that is happening, no, then you don't know Trump.
Yeah, you're exactly right. And we haven't even, with all the real things happening in this world, we haven't even had time to talk about the UFC fight that's about to happen.
Yeah.
That if you look at pictures right now, live pictures or video of the White House as we speak, they're literally building a cage on the lawn of the White House for this UFC
John the
event.
Builder. He's large and in charge.
Man, what a time to be alive, and what a time to be covering all of this stuff. Okay, so let's get to the main event here. Talking to Susie Moore from Red State, and of course the co-host of Mike Ferguson in the morning, every weekday morning here on News Talk STL. I'm really interested and fascinated by this. Maybe I'm nerding out a little bit more than I should be, but I find this to be really, really interesting when it comes to just legal precedent, history. You know, how do we handle these types of issues? The Supreme Court has decided to not hear a Florida lawsuit against the states of California and Washington regarding those states licensing illegal immigrants with truck driver CDL licenses. And this has been an issue in the news around the country. And this was Florida attempting to, I guess, do something about it or address it legally, but it's not gonna happen. And here's where you can kind of correct me if I'm wrong or kind of provide some clarity on this. It looks like that unlike other cases where it's like, no, send it back to the lower courts, this is the end of the road. That either the Supreme Court hears it or doesn't, and if they're not going to, then that's a wrap. Can you fill us in on some of the details and historical precedent maybe that's being set by the court today?
Yeah, I don't think there's really any precedent being set here. What happened here is that Florida sought leave. They filed a motion with the Supreme Court. It's called a motion for leave to file a bill of complaint. So they're basically asking the Supreme Court from the get-go, hey, we want to file this lawsuit against these other states directly with you. And as you probably recall from your civics lessons and stuff, original actions in the Supreme Court are extremely rare. I mean, they just don't. Most cases don't get to the Supreme Court like from the start. Mm-hmm. They have to go through layers of courts. So this was a rather unusual approach, and the Supreme Court said, no, that we're not going to get involved here. That doesn't mean that there aren't other ways that they may be able to go about doing it. But they can't. They're not going to be able to go straight, basically running straight to mommy and daddy with it. They're going to have to be creative about it. So this is a little different from the ones where we've been talking about. They didn't start out in a lower court. They didn't sue in a district court someplace or anything like that. They went straight to the Supreme Court. Because that jurisdiction is so limited, the court said, nah, we're not going to do this. Now, obviously, not everybody was on board with that because I think Thomas and Alito said, no, we would have taken the case.
Yeah.
But so that's what's going on there. It's probably an issue that ultimately Congress is going to have to solve. Haha, don't hold your breath. But it's not one where the Supreme Court is agreeing to just sort of step in from the get-go on it.
You know, we've talked about Ketanji Brown Jackson and how she's been making a lot of news and being very public with opinions and statements and things like that, and how that is not normal to hear that much from a Supreme Court justice, especially constantly like we have. And I put that up against, what we've seen from Clarence Thomas here over the today since this ruling was announced, and how public his dissent has been. And it really, it really highlights the difference between the two. Because, if I see that Ketanji Brown Jackson has got some big, long statement out there, I may gloss over it to see, what her... Mm-hmm. But I'm not reading every word. When Clarence Thomas gets upset and puts out a statement, I'm reading every word. Because, you don't hear it as much from him. And that there's going to be a lot of, real law, real issues, real proof and evidence in the statements he says. And you're right, it was Thomas and Alito that both said that the court should have heard the case. Thomas said that the court had a constitutional obligation to hear mm-hmm. the dispute because lawsuits between states can only be brought before the high court. And one of his statements was, quote, if this court does not exercise jurisdiction over a controversy between two states, then the complaining state has no judicial forum in which to seek relief. I'm not going to read, everything, but he was, he had a lot to say about this, and kind of making that point of this is what we are here for. Like, there's a lot of other noise going on, sure, but like this type of case between two or multiple states is exactly what the court is for, and we're not doing it. Do you think that that Florida will find a way that this issue isn't necessarily dead? They're just going to have to get creative and find a different way to address this?
I do. I feel like this is one of those things where there's more than one way to skin a cat, as the saying goes. And I think that this is definitely an issue that is kind of at the forefront these days with, with all of the focus that has been on CDLs being issued to non-citizens and the issues that has been creating. Whether that ends up coming back as a lawsuit filed against like a particular agency in the state or that sort of thing, we'll have to see. But I also do think that it's something where, one way or another, they're going to maybe need to be creative, but there will be ways to address this. This isn't the end of the story.
Yeah. And, maybe it will be taken up by Congress. But like you said, I'm not holding my breath on anything.
No.
In that regard. Only a couple minutes left here, Susie, but this is going to be interesting, the next few weeks, our conversations, because where are we, now that the Memorial Day weekend's passed and the unofficial start of summer, kids are starting their summer break. It feels like we're, crossing a threshold in 2026 here. We're getting later in the year. Summer is starting. We're very close to getting a bunch of decisions, are we not? Are we going to start to see a lot of the cases that we talked about this year start to get those decisions? And when do you expect?
It's crunch time.
Yeah,
there's about maybe 5 or 6 weeks left, and there's about 30 or so decisions that we're waiting on. A lot of those are ones that you've not heard of and really won't catch a whole lot of attention. But then there are several high-profile ones that we're still waiting on, not least of which is the birthright citizenship one, the transgender athletes one. I mean, there's several that are going to be very interesting, and they will get them all in before, we usually say the end of June. I guess technically they could go to like the 1st of July, but I've said this before. They're not going to want to go really into July because of the 4th of July celebrations.
And the end of June is
June
1 month
30th
away.
Is a Tuesday. Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
So they're going to want to be out of there by that Wednesday. There's no way they're going to want to stick around for Thursday or Friday that week. So I would say by July 1st, we'll get the last of the opinions, and there's about 30 to go.
And I know trying to predict when the court is going to do anything, especially release.
We know they.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. No, we know they'll do some on Thursday. That's the next likely opinion day is this Thursday. Probably release, maybe 3 or 4. And then starting next week, I wouldn't be surprised if we start seeing like 2 decision days per week.
Gotcha. So and it'll be like that over the next several weeks. Then we'll get a few at a time over the whole month of June. Basically, that's kind of how it'll all be. Well, it's going to give us lots to talk about, Susie. So
it will.
I really appreciate your insight on all of these issues and look forward to a lot of those great conversations in the coming weeks. Susie Moore from Red State Radio, which you can hear every Sunday afternoon here on News Talk STL. You can read her articles every day at redstate.com, and, of course, every morning with Mike Ferguson in the morning here on News Talk STL. Susie, I don't know how you do it all, but I certainly appreciate you taking some time for us, as always. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Tony. You too.
Great stuff there from Susie Moore. All right, we are going to keep the conversation rolling here with former Missouri State Representative, our law enforcement expert here on Colombo and Company, Representative Justin Sparks joins us next.
Watch us on our live stream using Rumble, Facebook, and Twitter.
The media.
1019 and 94.1.
They lying about what's going on in America. They lying about it.
News Talk STL.
Fox News commentary with Brian Kilmeade next.
I'm alpine skier Michaela Schifrin. I've won the most World Cup ski races in history. But what does success mean to me? Success means discipline. It's teamwork. It's the drive and passion inside of us, and it's why Stifel is one of the fastest growing global wealth management firms in the country. If you're looking for success, surround yourself with the people who will get you there. If you're an advisor or investor, choose Stifel, where success meets success.
Stifel Nicolaus & Company Incorporated. Member SIPC and NYSE.
Past performance is no indication of future results. Investing involves risk. Consult a financial advisor before making any investment decisions.
It's Brian Kilmeade on Spencer Pratt running to be LA's next mayor.
So this will be the biggest story in the country if you can overturn Los Angeles and get an independent running. And then the thing would be having success. Start making things better. He said, look, if I do not win, I'm going to Texas with everybody else. I'm not going to raise my kids here. Though my hope is I win and I make things better. And that would be key. Now, a lot of people saying what he says is a lot of the homeless need forced rehab, and there might be some legal issues with that. Good. Get a lawyer and get some city lawyers and figure out how to do it. And then you first get volunteers to go in there and see them get better, and maybe some ex-meth addicts go out in the stump with them and talk about Karen Bass's way is get the meth addicts new teeth so they can interview for a job. He's saying get them rehab so they can get off the streets.
For more commentary like this, go to foxnewspodcast.com.
Hello, 4th of July.
Back-to-back Jack! Kerry Robinson, a hero tonight!
The Cubs visit St. Louis May 29th through the 31st for a weekend of baseball's best rivalry at Busch Stadium. The history is real. The fans are loud, and the energy in the ballpark is unmatched. Day or night, every pitch matters when these two meet. So get ready, Cardinals fans. This is what summer baseball in St. Louis is all about. Get your tickets at cardinals.com/tickets.
The weekend starts at Busch Stadium. Grab your crew and kick it off at Friday Night Live. Every Friday night home game, Budweiser Terrace turns into the hottest happy hour in the Louvre. With $5 beers, $5 hot dogs, $7 margaritas, live music, and more, all game long. Meet up with friends, soak in the energy, and keep the night going with baseball under the lights. Good vibes, great deals, your new Friday tradition. Get tickets now at cardinals.com.
On the next Larry Connors USA.
The story behind the story, something personal. My early life selling Spud Nuts. Know what that is?
Larry Connors USA. Now, weeknights 6 until 8 on News Talk STL.
Welcome back to Colombo and Company on this busy Tuesday afternoon. I literally had to catch myself. I almost said Monday afternoon. I'm still getting used to it. I'm sure you are as well. But thank you for being here with us. Great conversation with Susie Moore in that last segment. Paul Curtman from PR Curtman Investments in the 2 o'clock hour. Paul, of course, also a former Missouri State representative, as is our next guest, News Talk STL contributor, our law enforcement expert, former Missouri State Rep Justin Sparks is on the line with us. Also, rolling with the punches here and joining us on a Tuesday. Justin's usually with us on Mondays. So really appreciate you working with us and taking some time out for us this afternoon, Justin. Great to be with you.
Tony, it's great to talk with you again as always, and I need you to refer to me as a recovering state representative next time.
Yes, I actually do. I'm not trying to bring up any, flashbacks or nightmares, in your coming night's sleep, but I do want to talk a little bit about some of the news that was made by the legislative body this year, specifically the announcement on Friday. It was breaking news on Friday, and we got to talk about it a little bit, but I think more, over the weekend, people are, digesting the announcement by the governor to put some major decisions for Missouri voters on the August ballot instead of the November general. So, the strategy there is interesting because we've heard a lot, specifically in April when we had the April elections and the school board elections, and everybody's saying like, oh, these should be in November when there's more people at the ballot, and that's the only fair way to do it. We got to move these April elections to November because that's when people show up. And then we have this, not putting these big decisions on the November ballot and doing it in August instead. So I kind of want to unpack that a little bit. But before we get into those specifics, just in general, how are you feeling about the momentum because it kind of, as I mentioned with Susie just a moment ago, now that we've gone through Memorial Day weekend, it kind of feels like we have crossed a line and we've advanced, we're into summer now in 2026 somehow, which means that we are, especially those August primary elections, are literally right around the corner when it comes to, how time passes in politics. So the primary elections and then these all-important midterm elections, and whether or not Republicans can maintain control, can maintain power for the last 2 years of the Trump administration with everything going on in this world. Just how do you feel at this point about the momentum and how voters are feeling? Are you feeling confident about the Republicans' chances at holding on to power, or is it going to be a mountain to climb for the folks on the right?
Well, it's a really strange and interesting dynamic between the two parties, especially because on one side you have a lunatic party that's quickly no longer even becoming a political party anymore. It's becoming a cult, a weird fetish cult is what unfortunately this new breed of Democrats are, which it's almost like you can't even make up some of the stuff. It's so wildly.
And cult is the right word. There's a time, not too long ago, I would have kind of rolled my eyes at that type of, assessment about one of the political parties. But you're right. I mean, it really is lunacy that we are seeing at the highest levels and the most public levels of this Democratic Party. I'm sorry, but I think you're spot on. Go ahead.
Well, you kind of have to call a spade, and you have to say when crazy policies are put forth by either party, you have to call balls and strikes, whether it's in your own party or another party or any political party. And the reason we have to do that is because the adults in the room have to come to some agreement and exercise some wisdom and discernment and say, okay, this is some of these things that we're talking about are just straight up destructive, and that's what we have on one side. On the other, we're talking about if Republicans continue in politics as usual, we're talking about the old establishment do-nothing Republicans. That's what I believe me. I served as a member of the Republican Party. I can tell you, I know what I'm talking about. They are going to get absolutely crushed. They just don't know it yet. They're literally they are dead candidates walking. They're going to get crushed. So many of them do not have their finger on the pulse of the people. They do not. They can say they want. They can say they do, and they can say I want to do the work of the people and represent. And it's really lip service. They really don't understand what a significant portion of the population is going through right now. And I'll give you an example. Tony, in like 1975, women that were 30 years old, it was like 95% of them were married, right? And today, do you know what that number is? It's like 25%. Okay, so when I say there has been a cultural shift in our country and the nuclear family is disintegrating, we have to understand the reality in which we live, and we have to start addressing it. All of these societal ills and problems we have can be traced back and actually can be explained rather easily. We just have to have the courage and the authenticity to engage them and to speak the truth and to actually do something about it. The days of the old do-nothing politicians are over. And if you haven't learned that by now, I don't know what to tell you. I think a great example of that is Spencer Pratt out in L.A., personally.
Yeah, and to get like credibility to what you're saying, if people don't believe that it's going to be that difficult, or that these Democrats in the state that party is in could take back power, just look at what's happening. And I say this all the time. How is it that a party that has Gavin Newsom, J.B. Pritzker, AOC, Zoran Mondani, Karen Bass, Jacob Fry up in Minneapolis, Tim Walz, Kamala Harris. These are the stars. That's the starting lineup for the Democratic Party. How is it possible that the Republicans could lose or are fighting for their lives to beat that side? And you can always fall back on the deck is stacked and the media bias helps the Democrats in a big way, and it does. I would never take anything away from that argument, but to your point, Justin, there's got to be something wrong with the Republican strategy or plan of attack if they can't beat soundly a team that's anchored by all those names that I just mentioned.
Okay, Tony, I'll I'm gonna give it to you, right?
Please.
This is really what it is.
Always.
This is uncomfortable, but this is really true. It's a fundamental DNA difference between progressives and conservatives, between Democrats and Republicans. Here's what it really is. So many Republicans, they're just too nice. There's difference between being nice and being kind. When you have a kind heart and you're a good person, you sometimes have to tell your kid the hard truth, and sometimes that might even hurt their feelings, but you do that because it's in their best interest. There's no difference here in society. Sometimes you have to say things that are true, and even though they may sting a little bit in the short term, but for culture and for the future of our country, they're very constructive and very necessary. We've stopped doing that. We have stopped doing that. People no longer, and conservatives and Republicans no longer do the uncomfortable thing and say, no, this is what must be said. This is the truth. And speak it in love, but it's still the truth. And this is why we need to enact this policy. This is why we can't go down this road. This is why we have to say no. And we have to save the republic, and we have to do it now. And unfortunately, there just is not enough of that out there. And that's what concerns me.
Yeah, and this is such a great sort of peek behind the curtain, and why you're the perfect person to have this conversation with, because you've been there and you've experienced it. I think you're spot on with that description of how the Republicans have gotten in their own way. Another, I think, layer of that is that, we've talked about this millions of times. The Democrats are better at circling the wagons. The Democrats are better at laying down their personal objectives, campaign promises, whatever it may be, to go along, to get along for the benefit of the party. And that's gross, but it also is one of the reasons that they win many times. Republicans, specifically individual Republican, I was going to say candidates, but not congressmen and senators, the elected officials, individually, they are challenged to have to make that decision. And I don't think that they, on the right, I don't think it's, and there's plenty of things that are wrong with Republican politicians, but I think that they are more likely to not go along to get along, and will say no. That's what Rand Paul and Thomas Massey, that's why they get into all these, these issues with the president, because they won't just say, look, I'm not going to turn my back on my campaign promises or something that I believe in just because, it would be better for the party. That's not why I'm here. So it's a tough thing, because by doing that, you're fighting for the right things, but you're also making it easier for the Democrats to win. So how do you, as a politician, try to reconcile, when to stand your ground and fight for an issue, or to save it for another day and fall in line with the rest of the party?
Such a great question, and I love your analysis on this issue already. You're just not going to like the answer. And
There's no good answer. There is no good answer.
No, well, because the answer is those on the left, let's call them the grassroots left. These people, they are true believers. And in my experience, there is far more on the left that truly believe what they're spouting than the ones that are kind of higher up in their party, which would be like the ones that are playing the political game to get ahead. The true believers on the left are extremely motivated, and they say, this is the hill that I'm worth dying for. I'm going to go out, knock doors, raise money, even cheat if I have to, right? These people like truly believe because they believe the ends justify the means. I've talked to so many of them. And those on the right, so these would be your more establishment Republicans or your conservatives, your older conservative voters, have for a long time farmed out the work to those that they've elected, the establishment. So these are your career politicians that have been in there forever. And these aren't necessarily bad people, but they've played a political game, right? They've made extremely political, calculated decisions based on their future. So when you have those two diametrically opposed forces colliding against each other, guess who wins? The true believer, because they're willing to sacrifice anything and everything for their cause, whereas the political calculation of the career politician is always going to acquiesce because it's not in their political best interest, and they're always going to give in first. That's what happens.
So with all that in mind, and knowing that obviously things can change over the next few months, but as it stands right now, as we start the summer season of 2026, if the elections were today, the midterm elections were today, do you think that the Republicans would hold the House and the Senate, or do you think that the Democrats would take over?
Well, thankfully, the elections are not today.
Yeah, thankfully.
But if they were, the Republicans would lose the House and quite possibly lose the Senate. I actually have a really pessimistic view on this. And I think that's the road that we're going down, unless, of course, I still have a lot of faith in the White House and their administration because they've got some tricks up their sleeve, but we've already seen it. We've already seen them moving and pulling some levers of power, which is really good. What we really need, Tony, is for the leadership in the U.S. Senate to actually pass the SAVE Act within time to actually affect the elections. What you have is, if you remember, we've had so many of these conversations about who and how leadership is chosen, whether it's in the state House or Senate or in the federal House and Senate. And lo and behold, look at what happened when we chose the leader of the Senate and what he has done and the legislation that he has actually pushed forward. If they wanted to pass the SAVE Act, it could be done, and it could be done right now. The fact that it hasn't been done is very telling. And also, you need to go back and ask and look and see who did your senator vote for in leadership in this last leadership election in the Senate, and then ask some very hard questions.
Boy, that is such a great point. When is the last time we even talked about the SAVE Act? When was the last time that was even in the headlines? And you're so right. The Republicans need to show people right now that they are willing to do the work to pass legislation, common sense legislation that will instill some confidence in their in conservative and libertarian voters and build some momentum. And yet they're not doing it, and they're not even not even the easy stuff, And if somehow that were to not pass, then it still serves you. Because now you can point the finger at the crazy Democrats, and I guess if there is, a couple of Republicans that were to change sides on that, now you can point at them and say like these guys are the problem, but they're not even trying. It seems they're not even pushing that stuff forward. That is such a great point. And yeah, if things don't change and they don't build some momentum and get some successes under their belt, I agree with you. I think it'll be a very, very tough midterm election season for the Republicans. Justin Sparks, great stuff as always. Really appreciate, again, you rolling with the punches this week and joining us on a Tuesday since we had the holiday yesterday. Look forward to getting back into it with you next week. Have a great rest of your day.
You too, Tony.
Yeah, awesome stuff there. Former Missouri State Representative Justin Sparks. And before we wrap things up today and hand you off to the Tim Jones and Chris Arps show, we are going to check in with our intrepid Cub reporter in the field, the great Stel Babe, producer Stel Pontikes. Kind of right along these same lines I mentioned earlier, big headlines today regarding the upcoming Texas primary. very much like what we saw last week in Kentucky with Thomas Massey. Donald Trump has endorsed Ken Paxton down in Texas. It could be upsetting the incumbent Republican seat, and some people say that could also put that seat in jeopardy in the general election. So I want to get into that and more as we continue with Stel Pontikes. Producer Stel, next.
Follow Tony Colombo on Twitter at Tony Colombo Talk.
Talk about race relations.
This conversation has completely made me crazy.
This is complete insanity. And I'm sick and tired of it.
101.9 and 94.1.
I find it to be a conversation starter.
News Talk STL.
You know, now more than ever, it is just so important that you have, as a homeowner, as, somebody that is trying to raise a family and you pay your bills and go to work every day, that you have the teams that you can trust when it comes to important issues or problems that could arise at your home or business. And one of those things are your electrical needs. Before we found the team at Grasser Electric and in our family, if there was something wrong, or we were having an electrical problem, it was just like a pit in my stomach. Like, who do we call? Who can we trust? And to know now that, with everything going on, else going on in life, that if one of these issues do arise, instead of having a panic attack and stopping everything to figure out how we're going to handle it, you have the confidence and the peace of mind that you can trust a team like Grasser Electric, local, family-owned business that's been here for years, will be here for years, has the best customer service when it comes to their techs, just the customer service, the professionalism, the work quality is second to none when it comes to Grasser Electric, and they specialize in all electrical needs, ranging from large-scale commercial projects all the way down to simple home service needs like replacing a bad light switch. They also offer free quotes for new projects, so if you have an electrical problem or just need a quote for new work, do exactly what I would do. Contact Grasser Electric. Learn more and contact them just by going to the website grasserelectric.com.
I'm Dr. TJ, owner of the Institute of Natural Health, co-owner of Optimal Nutraceuticals, and the host of Wellness One. Wellness One is designed to cut through the nonsense and provide you common-sense science-based information regarding health and wellness. On the show, we discuss topics like thyroid health, gut health, hormone optimization, and many others. Our show airs Saturdays at 10 a.m. and 2 p.m. and Sundays at 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. right here on Newstalk STL. And you can visit us at inhstl.com. That's inhstl.com.
Rhino Shield is engineered to outlast paint, formulated to outsmart the elements. Rain or shine, sleet or snow, mold or mildew. Our home exterior coatings intelligently designed to stand up to Mother Nature. Call 877-25-RHINO or 877-25rhino.com.
Producer Joey V from the Tim Jones and Chris Arp Show here, reminding you, don't waste a buck on movies that suck. Tune in to Joey V's Movies Fridays at 5:45 for reviews you can trust. Brought to you by Harry J's Steakhouse in Moscow Mills.
Welcome back to Colombo Company on 101.9 94.1 News Talk STL. Woo, what a busy start of the week that we have had on this Tuesday afternoon following the Memorial Day holiday weekend. If you missed anything today, make sure you're subscribed to our podcast. We put the show out as a podcast right after we get off the air every day. We put it on basically every podcast platform. So wherever you get podcasts, on that platform, subscribe to Colombo and Company, and you'll never miss any of these great conversations like the ones that we've had with Paul Curtman and Justin Sparks and Susie Moore this afternoon. And we continue that now with our intrepid Cub reporter in the field, checking in from some unknown corner of the globe as he covers all the important stories that impact your life. Stel Pontikes, the great Stel Babe, is on the line with us. Stel, how are you?
Doing fine, Tony. How are you, buddy?
I am doing good. I want to pick.
You say I'm in a unknown
Intrepid?
corner of the world. I'm in an unknown corner because I'm trying to get away from the Cubs losing streak.
Oh
That's
man,
why.
I know, right? I have no sympathy for you, my friend, but I do know that feeling of what you're going through. I want to pick up kind of right along the same lines as the conversation that Justin Sparks and I were just having about, now that we're starting, it's the unofficial beginning of summer here of 2026. We're getting real close to the midterm elections. We're getting really close to the August primary right here in Missouri with some major ballot initiatives, going to be decided in August. So there's going to be a lot of talk over the next few weeks about those issues. And one of the stories that's kind of developed around this election season is party versus party primary elections. We've seen it on both sides. We've seen it, here in Missouri on both sides, specifically with the Democrats, with Wesley Bell and Cori Bush, and their round two is happening between those two candidates with the roles flipped. Now it's Cori Bush trying to primary, the sitting Congressman Wesley Bell, and it was the roles were reversed in 2024. Last week we saw in Kentucky, the nationally spotlighted race with Thomas Massey and Ed Geleen, Donald Trump endorsing a candidate that is primarying a fellow Republican. And now a lot of people are looking at what's happening in Texas. Very similar situation. Donald Trump endorsing the Attorney General, Ken Paxton, and that race for the Senate seat there that is currently held by John Cornyn, one of the most prominent Republicans that have been in the leadership and under the spotlight over the last several years, and during his time in office. What do you make?
Yeah, multiple terms.
Yeah.
Multiple terms for him.
Yeah.
That's right.
What do you like? Do you like the idea of let's get the best candidate and it's okay to primary, go after incumbents in your own party, or does that uncertainty and division make it harder in the long run to defeat the Democrats and hold on to power in November? Where do you fall in general on this issue still?
I find it interesting, and I'm not going to ask you this to put you necessarily on the spot, but in the Massey case in Kentucky, since that vote concluded, all I've seen from the left is excitement about, Massey can really blow the lid off of everything now, and he'll have an opportunity to get all the Epstein information out there, and he'll have an opportunity to do this and that, and with immunity for the next 7 months or so. Look out, because Massey's really going to be doing it, and then he'll have a chance to run for governor, and he'll be able to do this and that. I didn't hear any of that before that primary, so I'm really scratching my head, wondering where the left is coming from on this.
I think they're being opportunists, and they're playing off that division and trying to make it bigger and sensationalize, that division in the party with throwing all of that out there. I like Thomas Massey personally. I think that he's a good congressman, and I would prefer him to have stayed, but it's also in Kentucky, so it doesn't impact me personally, except for if it truly does make things more difficult for Republicans and conservatives to hold on to the House and the Senate, and that is what's being made of this election in Texas in a big way. That if John Cornyn loses to Ken Paxton in the primary, that he's an easier candidate for the Democrat to ultimately steal that Senate seat. Do you think that there's truth to that narrative in Texas, or is that kind of like what you're talking about, them stirring the pot in Kentucky? Is that Democrats trying to sensationalize the situation?
I got to be honest with you. I don't see how Tallarico can pull it off. I mean, Paxton is very popular in Texas. Yes, he's made some mistakes in the past, but boy, in the last 4 to 6 years or so, He's done a great job of going after the administration on various legal issues. He's teamed up with Eric Schmidt and other attorneys general around the country, filing suits against the government and winning. And I I hope Paxton has a comfortable win today. I'm praying that he does, and I'm praying that the folks in Texas are not dumb enough to put the guy who seems to focus on transgender Jesus into some sort of position of government in that state, because the guy is definitely way too far left and too goofy for Texans to elect him. But then again, we're dealing with an interesting voting base in 26. So it's kind of hard to tell, but I certainly hope that Paxton can make it all the way through.
Yeah, and I agree with you in that no matter who wins, even if Cornyn does hold on to the seat or if Paxton does win, I don't see the state of Texas electing a Democrat to the Senate for the first time in decades all of a sudden in 2026. But there could be some concern with the unity of the Republican Party. And still, we only have a couple minutes left. Time flies when you're having fun. And it's always fun to talk to Stel. Same kind of question that I asked Justin a few minutes ago. This type of primary election and Trump endorsing one candidate while a lot of other Republican leaders, including Thune, endorsing John Cornyn. Could that create some division, and that could impact the unity of the party in the long run, and maybe hurt their chances to perform well in the midterms?
I honestly don't think so. And if I can divert you for just a second,
please.
We've got that situation in South Carolina today where the Republican-led Senate voted against a new congressional map. Now that's got me wondering exactly what's going on. That ends the redistricting effort in South Carolina for now. They have a primary that I think is coming up on June 9th. So Jim Clyburn's seat, the congressional guy, is safe for now. But there's also a federal court in Alabama that blocked the GOP's effort for a new map there, along with the situation in Indiana. So I agree with you that there's still a lot of squishy stuff going on the Republican side that I don't like at all.
Yeah.
And like we've talked so many times in the past about this issue, there's not enough backbone in the Republican Party to stand up to the Democrats and say, no, you're not going to do that. We're going to control this area or that area. And I don't hear that very much. Do you?
No, and amen. It should not be difficult to beat a team that is made up
in such disarray.
Yeah. When your opponents are J.B. Pritzker, AOC, Kamala Harris, Tim Walz, this is not a team that should be difficult to beat. But yet the Republicans have made it that, and it's going to be a wild ride through the summer as we get closer and closer to those midterm elections. Stel, babe, really appreciate your time as always, my friend. Look forward to talking to you again very soon. Have a great rest of your day.
Thanks, Tony. I appreciate it.
Yeah, awesome stuff there. That's going to do it. We are back tomorrow at 2. Keep it here for Larry's commentary next, then Tim and Chris.
This year, America turns 250, and News Talk STL is celebrating our nation's semi-quincentennial all year long. News Talk STL, #1 for live and local Soros-free talk, with proud supporters of our 250th birthday celebration. Anthony's Produce, Cole O. Combs, and Heroes Care. 250 years strong, and we're just getting started. 101.9 and 94.1 News Talk STL. This is Larry Connor's commentary on News Talk STL.
During the shooting at the Correspondents' Dinner, one reporter hiding under a table said, "I hope they kill the MFer." She was talking about Trump. Tennessee Congressman Ogles tells that story and says a woman was hoping when she quit hiding, she would stand up and see Trump dead. He did not name the reporter nor her company. You can claim the Republican just made up the story. But there are things you cannot deny. The far left has been attacking Trump verbally and literally for 11 years. 3 documented assassination attempts. Granted, this shooter didn't even get in the room, but his 1,000-word manifesto made it clear what he wanted to do. Illinois Governor Pritzker says Everything I've said about Trump trying to destroy our democracy has proven true. He was on CNN. No one asked, where's your proof? CNN's latest documentary is being rescheduled, titled Imperial Presidency. And then how do you explain the offer of the left-wing radical who owns a brewery in Wisconsin? He is promising free beer all day long on the day Trump dies. Kill the president, get free beer.
Get more Larry Connors on Larry Connors USA.
Tonight at 6 on News Talk STL.